Hello and welcome back to the studio today. It's Sunday and I've just been getting ready for our class on Wednesday. It's our ninth lesson in a row now, so we've almost, made the 10 lessons, which is absolutely brilliant, and it's really inspiring as well to keep seeing your work popping up there on Facebook. Don't forget, I am also posting it on my website, jamiepoole.com, so make sure you check that out at some point when you go and look at the videos and things. Right, so this year I had planned to go on holiday up to Scotland to a friend's wedding, but unfortunately, as you know, a lot of these things have been now cancelled. Who knows, it might still happen. But anyway, I thought it'd be a great thing, a nice subject to do, to think about those beautiful places in the UK and abroad that we all like to go visiting and enjoying the sun and enjoying just being in a different place. So from the coziness of our homes and studios, I thought it'd be great to draw a landscape. So choose anywhere that you've got great memories of going on holiday, visiting friends or whatever it is, and do a nice portrait, a nice landscape today. Okay, so I've chosen Scotland, as I just mentioned. This is a beautiful photograph that I found of Scotland. The nice thing about this photograph is that it's got lots of texture and detail. It has got lots of atmosphere, and in the foreground there you can see these beautiful details that draw you up through into the landscape so that you can finally see the mountains and the lake or the loch in the background. So I chose to do a drawing of that first of all, and then when I see you on Wednesday I'd like to do a painting of it. So here is my drawing. And what I've used to do this drawing is I've used 2B pencil, a 6B pencil, 4H to get much softer, lighter shading, and the 6Bs to get the really, really dark shading. And I also tried out a mechanical pencil as well for some of the details in some areas of the picture as well. And then we've got a putty rubber for taking out some of the graphite to get some of the highlights back into the picture when you've overshaded or when you just need to punch it up a little bit. And finally, I've used a blending stick, or you can use like a cotton bud if you've got some of those at home, and that's to smooth out some of the areas towards the back there. I've used the cotton bud on, and some of the other areas just to sort of smooth out and soften some of the areas, particularly around the grass and things. So, right, we're going to get started now. Find a really nice photograph or image, and we're going to be drawing those. I didn't use any grids, I've just used a pencil to measure the different shapes and get those in. But if you prefer to use a grid, don't forget there is a guide on how to use a grid to break down the image into smaller parts. As I said, this Wednesday we will be working on using some acrylic paints and maybe some other stuff as well on Wednesday. Alright, so let's have a little look at how I drew that drawing today. Off we go. Okay, here we are then, and this is the original colour photograph which you might have just seen at the beginning of our video. And you can see all the equipment that I have down the side there. There's various sorts of pencils in there. I am using today a 4H pencil because I wanted to get some finer sort of shading into the drawing a bit later on. So the 4H pencil is a harder lead, which means that you can do much finer shading with the pencil, and it doesn't sort of smudge quite as easy as say a 4B or a 6B or whatever. So the other pencil I use at the beginning here is a 2B, and then later I bring in a 6B to get really, really down and dark in some areas of the picture where the shadows are. So at the moment I'm using my 4H pencil to map out where all the shapes go in this picture. I chose this picture because it has nice soft sort of feel towards the back there, sort of a misty atmospheric feel, and as you come forward towards the foreground of the picture and the midground, actually you've got these lovely hard edges, textured rocks and so forth. So it's a really nice picture to look at, because you just get the chance to have fun looking at all that detail and trying out lots of different pencil marks. So when you're looking for a photograph, I recommend finding something that is going to suit you and something you obviously going to enjoy drawing, but something that leads you into the picture and has a really interesting composition. So the area in the foreground of this image is particularly nice because of that texture, so that draws you in as a viewer, and then the line of perspective draws you back towards the highlighted area of that mountain just beyond the lock in the background there. Okay, so here I'm using, you see me using a cotton bud, because I'm putting in the soft sort of skyline at the top there with my 2B pencil, and I mix, I go in between a 2B and a 4H because you can get much more softer lines, and then going with the heavier stuff afterwards as well, which is the 2B of course. So at the moment I'm looking at I don't want to overdo the back too much. I want it to have that lovely silhouette of that mountain in the background, but I also want there to be this highlight towards the back which draws you as a viewer from the textured area into the background as well. So it's quite nice actually. This little bit that I'm doing here right now is you've got the nice soft misty sort of atmospheric bit of the mountain and the clouds, but then as soon as you get into the water there, you've got all these little dashes of darker areas, because the water is quite choppy, if you want to call it that. So there's lots of dark and light areas next to each other in texture and things. And then we go straight back after the foamy sort of wave area, which I go back and work on in just a second. But you've got the dark shadowy sort of rocks down here on the left hand side, which I'm putting in now. So generally with this area I'm looking for the dark shadows to help me map out all of the shapes in this lovely picture. And you'll see me hopping back between different areas of the image as well. So you can spend quite a while working on a drawing like this, refining, especially once you've got the whole of the image kind of shaded, because you can go back and refine things quite closely and delicately. And if you've got time this week, you know, make the drawing but then go back to it and keep looking at it and looking at the photo really closely for extra texture and highlights as well. So one of the things you'll see me using in this drawing is I'll be using a putty rubber and a pencil shaped object which is basically rolled up soft paper, which is ideal for kind of blending or smoothing out some of the shadows and things, and you'll see me using that at different points. But the putty rubber can be manipulated and made into a nice sharp point to do there we go, to use nice sharp point to get in some of the highlights. Sometimes, you know, you take out the highlights and then you end up going over them, so you can take them back out again. But with things like rocks and objects with sharp edges, it's good to have a really dark contrasty area and then a nice light area next to it as well, and that helps you to sort of get the form of the picture as you work. So yeah, as I was saying, I probably spent about an hour and a half on this drawing. But when you go back and compare it with the photograph, you can see there's much more detail and even tone and shadow in there that I haven't had time to put in. So if I was spending more time on this, I would be refining it and working in quite closely with some of the details. And you might catch me using in this a mechanical pencil, which is a obviously really good for fine details and work as well. So if you've got a mechanical pencil and you're going to go back and work into your image, then try it out, because they're quite useful things to use. This is quite nice. Now you can see the photograph that I'm working from and me mapping out the different shapes as I move down. At different points I use the pencil in different ways as well. So here you can see me using more the side of the pencil, so the back of the pencil ends up being more like it's underneath my hand in my palm, and then other points you can see as it is now, it's on top of my hand. So basically that means I'm just using the side of the pencil to put in the softer areas, and then going in with more of a pointed, different, steeper angle on the pencil to get in some of the finer detail, or some of the more intricate detail. There we go, it's a mechanical pencil. I didn't do too much of that because I was more intent on just getting the drawing done so that you folks could have a look at the work. I'll have a look at an example. There we go, there's a bit of playing around with the mechanical pencil just there, and then back in with a 4H. So a bit like when we used the colour pencils, I kept swapping, didn't I, between different colours and blending those colours together. So using a soft pencil against a hard-leaded pencil, a H pencil, is brilliant for varying the texture and the tones of your image and having just a bit more control about how much tone comes out. So if you continually use a soft pencil, then you'll find that you get kind of an evenness, a flatness of your marks. But if you use a hard pencil, you can get the lighter, softer marks against the harsher, darker marks, or the tones. So you can really have fun experimenting with those, and I think quite a few of you have got a range of pencils. So what I recommend you do is you get in your hand, you get a few different pencils of varying strengths or softnesses and hardnesses, and then just hold those and keep swapping around a little bit and having a little bit of fun seeing what they can do. So the area just above where I was then, the green area, obviously the grassy area, this came out particularly soft on the black and white photograph. So what I did there was I put a generally sort of even tone in the H pencil, and went in, put some darker areas with the soft 2B pencil, and then added again some 4H very thin lines, because the 4H is quite good for maintaining that thinness of line. Put in some of the fine lines over the top, and then perhaps shaded to add more form after that again. So one of the things about filming this was the fact, again, like with the biros, the pencil itself, the graphite, is a little bit reflective, so at different points you kind of miss what I'm doing there, probably because it's reflective. So there we go, a little bit of mixture of pencils again, but you can see how the different tonal values are showing the form. So whereas at the top in the background I was using these very soft sorts of shading, here you can see a lot of the lines are much more harsh and crisp against really light, bright areas, and that helps just those details and the shape and the form of the jagged rocks and the textures to come out. So you're just using the pencil in a different way, using different mark making techniques to show those out. Some of the biro techniques on the worksheet that I published last week on the website, it's similar. It's a similar thing with the pencil here as well. So lots of very fine cross hatching mixed with jagged lines, dashes, and a bit of stippling on some of the rocks as well to help accentuate that texture. So you never know, I might get up to Scotland a bit later on this year. We were supposed to be going to a friend's wedding up there in Scotland, but I think they're still holding out that it might happen, but I'm not sure. 200 guests seems like a bit of a mass gathering, doesn't it? But we shall see. We live in hope. But I mean, when I went to Scotland about 3 years ago, I absolutely enjoyed the landscape. I didn't realise how big Scotland is until I got up there. You were saying it's that little place up north, but once you get up there, it is just so lovely and beautiful and vast, and nature kind of just dominates really. Whereas here we spend a lot of time on the roads, driving around, and we kind of miss a lot of the beauty of our own landscapes here in Northamptonshire or in the UK. So I'm working my way around the foreground at the moment. I suppose one of the trickiest bits, and I'll do that a little bit later, was down on the bottom right hand side where there's some grasses with little flower heads on them. I think they're pink in the original photograph. That required a little bit more working around and putting in the dots and then going back in with putty rubber, take them some more, add some more in, take some out. But generally what you'll find, and I've said this before as well, if you keep working on something, allowing yourself the luxury of just taking things away as well as putting them in, then you're kind of balancing the tones and shadows and the details out to get the desired effect. And the other interesting thing is that as an artist you bring yourself to your work, so different artists may obviously have slightly different ways of working and styles and end up with different results, but the important thing I think to remember sometimes is that your drawing is not a photograph, it's a drawing, so it's a special thing in itself. And should be a bit different to the original photograph. So next week, this Wednesday, what I hope to do is work back over this drawing with some paint, trying out a few different painterly techniques and things. It'll be quite interesting because I'll be able to apply some splatters and maybe a slight bit of palette knife painting along with some nice soft brushwork at the top as well, but importantly, bring the image even to life with that colour as well. So we shall see. Some good artists to look at actually, for this textures sort of effect is one of my favourites is Kurt Jackson, who I believe is from Cornwall, but he's painted lots of these rugged landscapes, as had another artist called Stuart Edmondson. They're very good at expressive marks and colour in the picture, but also getting that sense of atmosphere and space within there too. So generally just working over lots of different areas. I've covered most of the picture now. It's a shame you can't quite see it all, but I will publish a picture of it at the end on the website, jamiepoole.com. So back there in the sky just a minute ago, what I did is I
I wanted to darken it down just a bit more, so I went back in with a pencil, and then I added highlights with the putty rubber to accentuate the light areas against the dark clouds and things. But you can see me now, I'm sort of jumping around different parts of the picture, refining and adding details. But I could spend a lot longer on this picture, but I'm hoping to get stuck in with a bit of painting when I see you again. So thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed watching, and I hope you enjoy drawing. So let's have a bit of fun doing that next. There you go. There's the final kind of result. You can see the tones and the shadows and everything on there, and the difference with the textures in the foreground and in the background. So I hope you enjoy this week's lesson. Don't forget, drawing first, then painting after. Bye.